Good morning, everybody. We're back at it, Ron and I, over here at the Ron and Randy podcast. Today we're talking about how to clean the hooves on your cloven animals, including goats, cattle. I'm just kidding. We're talking about amplification fires today, Ronald.
I'm glad you mentioned amplification fire. I was like, I'm hoping he's going to bring that back to light. Amplification fires.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a lot of fun. That you hook your speakers up to them. All right, I got to get out of this stupid between two speakers character and just be a normal human being.
Yeah. No, you be your best self, whatever that is, Randy. How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right.
Good.
I had a lot of sleepless nights this week.
I had a lot of tired.
Yeah,
That's how tired I am.
Yeah, there's a mucho tired.
I hear you, man.
What are we talking about today, Ronald?
We are talking about what is the general idea here that we are trying to unpack. It was audio basics.
Yeah.
And last week we discussed sources, and this week we thought it makes sense to move into amplification fires.
Yeah, what your source connects to.
Yep. Now, since I was a chatty Cathy last time, we're going to let Randy just run with this, and I'm going to jump in.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of dead air, because I'm just going to... Now, so, amplifiers, integrated amplifiers, AV receivers, power amplifiers. There's all sorts of stuff to talk about, Ron. Where do you think we should begin?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a great question. Keeping in mind that we are dealing with a lot of stuff that can get very complex very quickly, and I don't think that's what this show is going to be about. We want to keep it simple and basic, and so I guess that a good place to begin is, are we going to jump into solid state or tube amplification? Which one would you rather talk about first?
Solid state.
Perfect.
Solid state, Ronald.
Why don't you go ahead and give us a deep dive, thorough understanding of all classes, all topology. You got 5 minutes. Go.
You got your class A. You got your class AB. You got your C. And then I actually think there's something like F out there or something like that.
There could be.
Yeah, or G or H. That's not a joke. I actually think there is something something to that. But listen, besides knowing that they exist, I think you're probably going to be the man to explain this a little bit better.
Yeah, I can try. I'm going to be absolutely stealing great analogies that I've heard over the years by people that are much smarter than both of us, and maybe that will help us better understand just some basic...
Is it more than one person?
More than... Yes.
Then it's not stealing, it's inspiring.
Thank you. We're inspired by. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think a good place to maybe start is Class A. Okay? Mm-hmm. And I think that the first thing that...
Did you say A and then K? Because that might be confusing to the audience. You could say A, all right?
A as an apple.
Yeah.
And K as in kite. AK. It's a new amplifier topology that Randy and I are working on. And,
we use tinfoil for the conductors in there.
Yeah. It has lots of tone controls on it that are all disabled, so we're just going to mess with
all. It doesn't work at all, but we're trying to soldier through it and get it better.
All right, so I'm going to need some help with one thing to illustrate this. What is the type of Olympic sport? Because I'm sure you know this, but I'm definitely vast on all my knowledge of everything sports. You can tell just by looking at me. But what is the track or the running thing where they pass the baton to the next person? What is that called?
A relay?
A relay. Ron, every kid should know that it's a relay race. Yes.
Steeplechase?
Yes. Yes.
Is that what it is?
I think Valor does that when he was a kid in the farm. He would do relay races.
I did the triple jump.
Did you really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And a high jump.
I believe that, Randy.
And then they put me in high hurdles once.
Once was enough for you to show them, like, okay, that's how it's done. And
they're like, this guy shouldn't be doing that. Maybe we should just give him a shot put and a discus. And he goes off to the corner.
Oh, it's hilarious, man. So the analogy that I once heard, and I'm going to give credit where credit is due. This was from Nelson Pass, and I promise you I will screw this up. But if we're talking about different topologies and using the analogy of a relay race, then in this particular example, Class A would be the least efficient of the relay races. So what this would look like is you have the one person with a baton running around to hand the baton to the next person, but with Class A, they're both running at the exact same time. And so when they pass it to each other, it's this constant stream of running. They're both running at the exact same speed. They're going around.
They're both tired, too.
They're both tired. And so
they're probably like, this isn't, I don't think this is the way we're supposed to do this.
Right.
I think you're supposed to be stopped, and then I give it to you, and then you run, and I stop.
Yes, correct. So speaking as technical as we're going to get, all output stages are on all at the exact same time on Class A topology. And so it is not efficient, and it is producing a lot of excess energy that is then transferred to heat.
Transferred into heat.
Heat. And so I want to, before we move on to Class A, B, and do the relay race analogy again, I want to mention, and I think this is a good stopping point, advantages and disadvantages. So with Class A, one advantage might be that a lot of audiophiles, hi-fi enthusiasts, music lovers that listen to Class A, they find it to be just a very natural, beautiful presentation. They don't typically associate Class A with listening fatigue, with something that sounds shouty or forward, or something that is in your face, something that is glassy sounding. It is the opposite of those. It's usually, wow, this is just a nice, relaxing, kind of sink into the sofa type of a sound where it is reminiscent to a lot of the things that we're going to be discussing as positive attributes when we talk about tubes. So,
isn't like the shouty nature and all that stuff more attributed to... Here's a good question. Is it more attributed to the speaker or the amp?
I think if we're talking about... Okay, if we're talking about the exact same speaker and we're just swapping out the amps, I think that if we were to discover differences in sound, it would have to be related to the amps. But to your point, I think this could come down to specific pairings and what those pairings look like. And that.
So if you have like a lively speaker on top, and you put it on a Class A, you could calm that down. Is that what you're saying?
That is fair to say. I think that would be an appropriate or a smart pairing. Yes.
Perfect. I got it right, Ron.
You got it, dude. You nailed it. Now, so if those are the positives or the things that we like about Class A, some of the negatives, which we've already discussed, one being heat, I don't give a rip about that. If an amplifier gets hot, I don't care. But one thing we do have to recognize is a lot of Class A designs are not going to produce a lot of watts. Okay?
Oh, okay.
Now, we're going to get into the weeds very quickly, and I know that most of the people on my channel are already screaming like, don't mislead people about watts, and I'm not going to. I'm not. Randy and I are going to do a mic drop moment right now. Boom.
Okay. Do it. And then I want to talk about the British audiophile real quick.
Awesome.
Do it. Mike,
Fantastic.
Mike, drop it.
Awesome. You need a lot less watts than you think you need.
True statement.
It's a true statement. So while one could say one drawback or disadvantage to Class A is they do not produce a lot of watts in many situations unless you are going to sell 2 of your yachts to buy that really high power Class A amplifier. That is a true statement. They don't, but I would come back and say, yeah, but it's probably more than what you think you really need, and it's probably enough.
Yeah.
Right?
So, I agree, and you know who does an excellent job of illustrating that? It's old Taryn over at the British Audiophile.
He's a smart guy.
Very smart and quite attractive, in my opinion.
I think he's handsome. Absolutely.
Yeah, and he's got a really cool name.
Yeah.
So he has a great video about that, and basically, like, people would be surprised because I get questions about, oh, can this 170,000 watt AV receiver drive my 6 ohm speakers? I'm worried about it. First of all, it's not 175,000 watts. Secondly, like, if we're listening, let's say 8 ohm speaker, you're listening at 5 watts, your face is going to be melting off.
Yes. Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, is that a good pivot point? Should we... Anything
I'm trying
else?
to see if the Vista Audio Spark is Class A.
Class AB, if I'm not mistaken. Ooh, that reminds me. Actually, we'll talk about this when we get to Class AB. I'm backing up, retracting the statement.
You're walking it back.
I'm walking it back.
Okay.
All right. So, you got anything else to throw in there? Any other nuggets?
Listen, Ron, I'm going to be totally honest with this. Besides being able to name the different categories, that's about the extent of my value in this. It's going to be Randy talks about it and says the right name.
Okay.
And then Ron picks up the baton. It's a relay. But I'm only running about 10 yards, and you're running
3.5.
The last 1,200 yards.
Combined, we'll get 13.5. So I think we're going to be okay.
And that's probably all the wattage you need. Did you like that segue?
I loved it. It was brilliant.
Boom.
It was brilliant. So
let's hold on. Let's put a pin in something. We're going to come back to it.
Yeah.
Why should one sometimes consider having way more power than they need? Okay, putting it on the wall. We're going to come back to that.
Yes, absolutely. So,
I'm putting you on the spot here, aren't I?
You are, but it's a great segue, and I think that we need to establish that many audiophiles take a look at an amplifier and their eyes gravitate straight to watts. And I think
everybody, I think 99. That's why you have Sony AV receivers that have a giant
watts.
150 on them.
Watts.
And then you look at it and it says one channel driven at 10% THD.
Yeah, where I think, and this is one of the biggest things that was kind of, I guess, like a wake-up call for me early on, is when I started to but I started to recognize current and understanding impedance and understanding, well, at 8 ohms, if it produces this much, what happens when we drop to 4 ohms? What is it then producing? Because there are many Class A amplifiers that are high current designs, and let's just say in an example of 8 ohms, let's say it produces 25 watts. Well, if it dips down to 4 ohms, guess what happens? It's now 50 watts, okay? And because both of those runners are running, they're ready to go, it's like it can do that. And so I think it's important that we just stop and recognize that that would be a nod in the direction of a high current design, which does exist in both Class A and Class AB, and we'll talk about that when we get to Class AB. But without getting long-winded, It has been my experience that with many of those Class A amplifiers, they have enough to wake up many speakers that would quite frankly shock you and surprise you. And
so takeaway here.
Yeah.
You got a high current. Let's say you got a 20 watt Class A high current amp. You put an 85 dB 4 ohm speaker on it.
Yeah.
You'd probably be surprised at what you can get out of it.
Probably. You very well might be surprised what you can get out of it. And one thing that I always try to do is help people like take a step back, stop looking at the equipment for a minute and start thinking, well, in what application am I going to be listening to the amplifier? What is the size of my room? How far away am I from the speakers? Because like in your case, Randy, a lot of your listening is like desktop near field style. You don't need to wake up those speakers very much to get them to party, right?
No. Well, yes. So that's the kind of the initial test or evaluation.
Yeah.
And then I take them out to the big room. But again, it's even in a huge room, even at, 10 foot, 12 foot away, I'm still getting solid, up to the 80 dB without pushing them very hard.
Right. Yes.
And that's loud. 80 dB for me is loud. Well, not super loud, but if I'm trying to get the kids' attention, I'm having to yell.
Oh, yeah. When you do your dad voice, how high are you pegging on the old decibel meter?
Probably about 150, 157.
Yeah, I'm at
dB.
the point where I'm thinking there might be a fatality involved, so I might want to just back it down a little bit.
Like jet engine, and then I'm slightly above that. No, but before we stop about that, if one Googles power requirements based on impedance and sensitivity of the speakers, normally a couple of calculators will pop up. You put in how far am I away, how many speakers do I have, how close is the wall behind me, and then what decibel level you're listening at.
Yeah.
And it tells you how many watts you're using.
Yes, that's great. We should link that. That's awesome. That's good to know.
I made it. I made all that up. It probably doesn't exist. I'm just kidding. It does exist. I've been there.
Yeah, so I think that the point here is, even though it is fair to say that a disadvantage of Class A is typically you don't find tons and tons of watts, I think it is foolish to walk away from that thinking that's not going to be enough, because you're only looking at one thing and you need to look at a number of things to understand what's really going on with Class A. Yeah.
And not to continue beating a dead horse here, but the amps that I have had zero issue driving all of my speakers, including notoriously hard to drive speakers, are all 50 watt into 8 and maybe 90 into 4. And they have handled everything that I've thrown at them.
There you go.
Yeah.
Let's head back to the relay race.
Relay. Okay, we're running. We got the short shorts from the 80s on. That seem to be coming back into style.
We do. So we're going to use me and you as the example. I'm running with my cutoffs, and I'm doing my relay race. I've got my baton in my hand, and I'm running, and I'm going around the track, and you're watching me, and you're like, Ron's running. He's running fast. And as I come around the corner and I start to get closer to you in a Class A-B situation, you start, as you see me coming, and you start to run to try to match my stride, and it's difficult for you because I'm running so fast, but you do it. I hand you the baton, and then you run.
I take over.
You take over, and you're like a cheetah.
Yeah, like a gazelle and a cheetah all rolled into one.
Yes.
Which is interesting because generally the cheetah eats the gazelle.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah.
But in this particular example, if I was a cheetah and you're the gazelle, we're friends and we're buddies, and we're
getting along. It's like a Disney movie.
We're gonna get Taco Bell later, I think is the point of this. Instead of eat, yeah, right.
Quesaritos.
I'm a bean burrito with red sauce and onion kind of guy, but we can do some quesaritos. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we can get different things when we go to Taco Bell.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. So.
I'm sorry, that made me laugh. just imagine you and I going into Taco Bell. And I'm going to have 3 of those quesadillas, some Mexi fries, and my friend over here is going to have 16 bean and cheese burritos.
And we're going to regret every decision we're about to make.
Yep, we're going to go home, turn on Terminator, James Cameron Classic, and listen to it through Ron's giant speakers.
Yes, correct. So, watering this down in the most simplistic way, in that analogy, you can almost visualize and understand that, unlike Class A, where the Gazelle, Randy the Gazelle, and Ron the Cheetah are running together, in this situation, we can see some potential in terms of saving energy or being more efficient, if you will, that we don't need to produce as much energy to get the same power, if not more power. So the side note that I was referencing earlier, and this is not to get too confusing, but there are Class AB amplifiers that are somewhat of a hybrid in that up to a certain amount of power / watts, etc., they run Class A. And then when you hit a certain threshold, you turn the juice up, then it enters into the arena of Class AB. So, with Class AB, this is a bit of a game changer in terms of we now have the wattage, and this can go.
We got the power we don't maybe even need.
that we don't need. And to be fair, I mean, look, there are speakers out there that are difficult to drive, and there are speakers out there that there is an appropriate time to consider Class AB amplification. And,
but that's like, I mean, if you go out and you just throw a dart and it hits an amplifier, chances are that's an AB amp, right?
Yes.
Alpha Bravo.
I would say yes, with a close second now. We're getting into Class D, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Class D is getting more and more popular for many good reasons, and we'll talk about those. But yes, Class AB has been, I would say, the commonplace everyday amplifier for many, many years. Yes.
AB receivers, AB.
Yep.
Alpha Bravo.
Yeah, and there are many advantages to Class AB designs, and there has been many advantages, being that we now have the watts, right? We are not producing as much heat, or we're more efficient than what Class A was. And here's the thing is they can sound great, and that has been my experience. There's been many Class AB amplifiers that, even when I have personally compared them to some Class A designs, it's been difficult to say we got a clear winner on our hands. Often what it was is more side steps, of, well, this one is a little bit of this and this one does a little bit of that. And so
different, but not necessarily better.
And so I think, to the point that you were making earlier, Randy, and you did a good job of, is it could come down to pairings. And, what flavor of hi-fi ice cream do you like?
Pistachio, chocolate, vanilla, cookie dough.
All mixed together.
Cheesecake,
yes. So, that's Class A.
Creme brulee.
Oh, man, now I want to...
Do you know who likes creme brulee?
I do know.
Our buddy over there in Seattle.
Yeah. Mr.
Joshua Valor.
Mr. Velour.
You should go watch his channel if you're listening to us, because he got a whole bunch of headphone stuff.
Yeah, he does. He does headphones. Let's talk about headphones. Yeah.
He knows his stuff.
He does. He's a great dude. Love that guy. All right. So, any other nuggets of information about Class AB before we move on to Class D?
No. There's some stuff I might want to come back to. We're going to put it on a pin on the wall again. We're talking about the preamp section versus the power amp section.
Okay.
Putting it on the wall. We're going to go to Class D.
All right.
We're putting it on the wall now.
We're back
to
let me
see.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me see if I can handle the Class D.
Go for it.
Hold on. My screen's I'm trying to do a Class D with my hands, Ron, but look, I'm just going to do a heart instead. All right. Heart means Class D. Okay. Class D. So everything we've talked up to at this point has been discrete amplifiers. Right?
Yeah.
Bunch of parts, grabbing capacitors, relays, all that good stuff. Throw them together. Boom. There you go. Class D is an amp. All that stuff's on a PSB, a printed circuit board. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. You're very slow with your responses, Ron, and I feel like I'm wrong.
I got distracted. My phone was buzzing. I apologize. Go.
It's okay. It was the Walmart texting you that your order's ready?
Yes.
You gotta go pick up the tofu?
Yes.
Okay, so Class D amps on a board. Okay? Class D, super efficient. Okay? Class D, super small footprint.
Can be. Yes.
Class D, audiophiles think they're crap. Maybe. They're getting better. Or they are being more well received, or maybe the adoption of Class D is going up with the audiophiles.
Yes, that is true.
Okay.
I believe that's true.
That's about as much value as I can add, Ron. You're going to have to take over.
Okay, no problem. That was great. That's a great segue. So Class D, if we go back to our analogy very quickly of cheetah and gazelle, this one is a little bit different from the other ones in that Randy is the sprinter first. He's running. He takes off. Boom. He's going. And he's going around the track. And I see him coming. I know he's about to get to me. And what do? I stand there and I wait for him. I do not try to match his stride. I do not start running. I wait for him to just right next to me, hand me the baton. He stops. He gives me the baton. And then I go.
Yeah, not real good to win the race.
Not great.
If it's a relay.
Yes. So this was the analogy that Nelson Pass gave. If it's wrong, you can email him. But I think it's probably...
I think he probably knows what he's talking about.
I think he might know what he's talking about. And I might have done the analogy wrong, but I think this is the gist of it. So you're right. Now, Class D, early on, I think it kind of had... I'm not going to say a false start, but I'm going to say it was a rocky start from the get-go. And I think that a good reason as to why is, like most things when it comes to advancement and discovering something or figuring something out, it just takes time to refine.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And so a lot of the early Class D designs that while they were extremely efficient, very cool to the touch, did not produce a lot of heat. Many audiophiles just didn't love the way they sounded. And it's almost as if you can take everything that we were talking about, Class A. Wow, kind of just sink into the sofa. I'm just relaxed and I'm just like enjoying this. It's almost the opposite of that. It's like, yikes, this does not sound relaxing. This does not sound engaging. This does not sound... All of those positive attributes, a lot of the early designs, many audiophiles felt that they just didn't sound very good. And...
too analytical, too bright, too metally.
Yeah, and I think that bright is kind of tricky. I think that one of the early descriptions of Class D was like a chalky sound up top. It's almost like it was a very unnatural or glassy, like something is strange about the top end. It does not sound natural. And so I think that was one of the biggest problems. Now, it has been, now, before we even get to that, advantages. Lots and lots of power, tons of power, high current. So we do see many Class D designs that double down in current. So we're talking about produces this many watts at 8 ohms. It doubles down at 4 ohms, so on and so forth. And so they bring the punch, and that is a huge advantage to Class D designs. And so There's that. As Randy mentioned earlier, smaller, right? So compact. We can now produce, Marantz can now produce, Denon can now produce, all these companies can now produce, 5-channel amplification with small modules that don't produce a lot of heat. And
I'm showing the topping MX3 on my side, just how small it is.
Thank you for that perfect example. So a lot of these you can fit in the palm of your hand, and you plug them in, and you're kind of blown away by how much power they are able to bring to the party and wake up many, many speakers that you would be surprised by. So there's that. I would say another advantage to Class D is the implementation for manufacturers is less expensive. And so this is kind of a win-win scenario because it is less expensive for them to produce. Guess what? We pay less. And so it's a situation where you can get many Class D amplifiers that, again, produce a lot of power, can easily drive any speaker that you can imagine, and you don't have to pay, a pretty penny for it.
All right, I got another question.
Yeah.
All right, so we just hit on it. They're cheaper, they're more efficient, they sound better now than they did before.
Yes.
In many ways, I guess probably better. Let's say AV receivers. So my question is this. AV receivers, why aren't they just using a bunch of Class D modules for the different channels? Is it a manufacturing issue that they're just so into the previous topology that they're not thinking about changing? Because there are some newer amps coming out from Yamaha, from Marantz, and things like NAD that are now incorporating Class D, but it almost seems like it's on their higher end stuff and not the lower end stuff.
It's interesting. I would be speculating.
I don't know.
I would be speculating.
Well, I am too.
Yeah. It's a good question. You guys, I would be curious what you think. So leave your comments down below as to that particular question, because that would be an interesting discussion to engage. And like, what do we all think about that? What are our thoughts? And you're right. I mean, there are some examples of, even like Marantz uses, this, it's around here somewhere. The Model 30, it uses Class D amplification output stage. It uses the Encore NC500 modules. And it was really interesting when I did my presentation, my video for Marantz for that. I mean, immediately there was just this knee-jerk reaction of, you mean it's this much money and it has Class D? Yuck! What's wrong with, that's crazy. And but
those are like the best, arguably the best Class D modules. They're the Hypex ones, right?
They are. They're the NC500 Hypex monoblocks. It is a monoblock design. And what's fascinating is that, like you, my reaction to that was like when I first learned that they were using the NC500s, you know what my honest gut reaction is, wow, that was smart. That was a smart move, and the reason why is, having had experience with the NC400s and hearing them in the NC500s, they're a bit of a chameleon. They produce all the power that you could ever want. They can drive any speaker that you could ever want, and they sonically get out of the way. And so I thought that was actually a really smart move. It's like, wow. Well, now in the preamp, you could voice this however you want, and that is just going to be, that's a smart design choice, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and I think, if you look at NAD, they're moving towards a hybrid style of a Class D output stage with their input stage.
Yes.
And I think that's where things are going to be moving towards in the future, for all the reasons that you said.
Cool.
Even the manufacturing process is going to be easier, because you're just dropping a board in and then you're putting the rest of the stuff in. Anyway, I digress.
No, I completely agree with you as well. I think that we're going to see a stronger push in that direction. It does make a lot of sense. And does that mean that Class A and Class AB is going to go away? No, I don't think so. But I do think that we're going to see a stronger contender that is, it's just more available, which is cool. And I have been one of those channels through the years that I've just never poo-pooed Class D. And the reason why is I've had it from the very beginning, and I actually felt that I heard the transition over the years of, this is actually getting better, guys. Like, we need to stop talking about this as if it's just bad and it will always be bad. And there have been some Class D designs that have been some of my favorite amplifiers of all time. Like,
yeah, I've got one over my shoulder right now.
Yeah. Is that a Past Labs amp that you're referring to, or?
No, it's a SVS sound base. It's the Amp Camp kit from Nelson Pass. No, it's the SVS sound base.
Yeah.
That thing is, to me, and that's the kind of sound that I really gravitate towards, is rich on the bottom and just very thick and punchy, and I really like it. And that SVS, if you would blindfold me and say pick out the Class D, it would not be the SVS.
Yeah, sure. I think it's a good segue. What's new in our audio world? What's is that what you're working on right now? Is knocking out the SVS stuff?
So I've got the Primes bookshelves, and I'm going to be doing a review on those this week, as well as a new speaker that I got in recently that I don't even know how to say it correctly. Aperion Novus or Verus. It's one of them. I don't know. It's their more affordable one. And both those speakers are excellent. Both about in the similar price range. Both with a 5 1/4 inch woofer. And it's going to be fun. These are really good. Both of them are.
Yeah.
Really good.
White speaker, right?
Yes. So I can't show you because I have to move the camera and then I'd probably drop it and then we'd have to restart. Yes. So the Aperion is white. The Primes, and you can get it in different colors.
Yeah.
And then the SVS I have black ash.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's really cool, man. I'm excited. I know that when you got those Aperions, you texted me and you're like, well, Mr. Bernay, we need to have a little chit chat. So I'm pretty excited to see what you think.
Yeah. There's a certain speaker, when you turn it on, because I like to get stuff out and just throw it on and see, get my initial take, like when you meet somebody for the first time, right? And we've all met somebody that you're like, I don't know about this cat, but then you get to know them and you find out that they're a very kind person and they maybe do some cross stitching and they have all sorts of cool characteristics that you didn't think. Opposite on this one, I was just like, ooh, okay. Yeah, I think this is going to be some fun.
Awesome.
Was my first experience, Aperion. And awesome. Then I listened to him. I got in trouble yesterday. I had him out in the living room, and my wife came out and said, can you turn that down? It's getting a little excessive.
Did you reply, well, maybe you're just getting too old?
No, I replied, I'm sorry, honey, I'll turn it down.
that was probably the smarter of the two choices that you had. Probably the smarter.
I thought about going the other way, but then I was like, maybe not.
Yeah, awesome, man. Well, that's great.
What about you, Ronald?
Hey,
Ron, what do you have over there?
Thanks for asking, pal. I appreciate that. I'm having a whole lot of fun here this week. I am putting Kef versus Kef is, I think, going to be the title of the video. I have the original. Here's what happened is Kef was kind enough to send me the new Meta, which is the evolution of the Kef LS50, and so I got that. And then it's just through the kindness of our viewers that I was able to get my grubby hands on the original LS50. Now, what's cool about that is I never spent time with the original LS50. It's just one of those speakers that just drove past my house. They didn't stop by to say hi. They didn't come in to have some brownies. And now, now I get to put them against each other and just say, fight to the death. What do we got?
Yeah.
So
like
I'm excited.
2 brothers.
Yeah, 2 brothers.
Two twins, one of which had some surgery. They're going at it now.
Yeah. So that's what I'm working on that. It's fun.
Well, I saw some of your pictures from it, like your stills.
Yeah.
And it looks incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, your photography prowess is quite impressive.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about mean things people have said to us now?
Ooh, yeah. You go first, because I'm not prepared. I got to find one.
I'm sorry. I took a picture of one this morning. I'm like, I need to remember this one.
Okay.
All right. Let me pull it up on my old phone. It was very, very nice. Very nice. It's very long, too.
Ooh.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. This is from TG. TG. I'm saying his name. I don't care. This was the Emotiva amps stack versus the Iota amp stacks. Okay? Are you ready?
I'm ready. Hit me.
All right. Your speech patterns are so staccato, stumbling with abrupt pauses and corrections that I find it frustrating to listen. Get a damn crib sheet with an outline for the review. Once you've given a model number, you don't have to keep repeating it and stumbling and screwing up. We get it. The ELAC speakers, the Iota VX and Emotiva integrated, and later the Iota VX and Emotiva amps. It's like you're a little drunk or maybe hammered from the night before. You kind of mumble and wander aimlessly around while you stretch to make a point. You are poorly prepared public speaker. The review was also poorly prepared and disorganized, and the delivery was atrocious. Thank God you didn't do a good review. Hold on, thank God you didn't do what a good reviewer would and try some different speakers. Okay? It's almost over. It's almost over. Not having to listen to you bumble more model numbers for another 5 minutes is something I'll consider a personal blessing. It was so sweet of him.
I would send him maybe like like a Christmas card or...
Yeah. Have him over to the house for dinner.
Have him over. Send him what are those bouquet of like fruit? The fruit that you can just.
I don't know.
Yeah, send him one of those.
Some chopped up cantaloupe and something like that.
You're like, hey man.
So I will. Okay, so most of that is true. Yeah, I was bumbling. But that's me. Obviously, he hasn't watched a lot of my other reviews. I would imagine. However, I will say I disagree with one part of it.
Yeah.
And that's when he said I should be using a bunch of different speakers to test amps. Really? Because here's the thing. We need to eliminate variables so that we can listen to what the amp sounds like.
Yeah.
Okay? So I had a source going into both amps. So then I'm eliminating DACs, everything else. A source. I had a pair of speakers that I know well. So then I could hear the differences. If I just started throwing a bunch of speakers up, then how valuable would that be?
Well, I agree with everything that guy said, personally.
Yeah, he was spot on. Do you want to hear my reply?
Nailed it. What'd you say?
I'll say, at TJ, thanks so much. I appreciate you watching.
What? I mean... boy,
He felt very strongly.
Very passionately. He's passionate. He's a passionate human being.
Yeah.
Oh, man. It's really funny, bro. It's like a lot of these, I'm not going to get defensive about this, but a lot of these guys, it's like, have you ever tried talking into a camera and doing actually, like you could just pretend. You could get one of your daughters or kids' toy Barbie cameras, set it up, and then talk into it and tell us about a speaker that you're listening to. Go. Camera's on. Go. You're stumbling. Go.
There was an Andrew Robinson video that I watched, and it was about the name Unity Atom.
Yeah.
And he said it probably like 50 or 60 times. And Andrew's videos are awesome.
Yeah.
Like, they are, talk about being prepared. This guy's prepared.
Yeah.
And like the next video, he got so many comments about how many times he said it that he actually addressed it in the next video. And I think he even put like a pinned comment.
Oh, my goodness.
So, but here's the deal. Do you want to know why I say that more often? Because guess what? I have a very nice gentleman that listens to my reviews, and he's blind. Okay? So, he comments on a lot of my videos. He's reached out to me on Facebook, and he's a wonderful gentleman. And he asked me, can you make sure that when you're talking about things, just to say which one you're talking about? And I was like, absolutely. Okay? So, yeah, guess what? I may say the names, and I'm probably going to mess them up, but I'm going to continue doing it, TG.
Yeah.
So, you have the choice. Move on. You can go watch somebody else. But I'm not gonna alienate a very nice gentleman who doesn't have the ability to see things just because you feel like I stumble and bumble. I also had to record that 3 times.
Yeah.
Because I messed it up.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. All behind the scenes stuff, man. They don't. Randy, you know what I think he did? I think he did move on with his life. And he went over to New Day Records, New Day Records, and he left me a little comment. And so I'm going to go ahead.
Is it the same guy?
Might as well be.
Okay. It probably is the same guy. He's just got like 5 different accounts.
So this is on the recent review of the fantastic Concept 500s from Q Acoustics. Like those speakers a lot. And he says, I just love reviewers that show off a pair of speakers and and you don't even get to hear them play. Might as well just read about them in a magazine.
Yeah, because there's a lot of those lying around right now. You go run down to the Barnes & Noble. Barnes & Noble, there's a whole stack of 15 different stereo magazines you can get a hold of.
I got to admit, most of the time when I get something like that, I'm usually just like, whatever, move on. I decided to be a little bit snippy with them. I replied back, I just love viewers that show up to a YouTube review and don't take the time to read the description. Might as well leave the description blank altogether. And the reason why I said that is, and a lot of people that are familiar with New Record Day and my channel, they know that I have gone through great lengths to do not just sound clips, but I think a lot of people would agree, like, some of the better sound clips out there. And that takes time, and that takes energy, and it takes money. You should be doing that, Ron. Yeah. That's what it's expected of you. Yeah. And the hilarious thing is that I did, and it was in the description. Like, you can just click on it, and then a whole new video adventure begins, and you can listen to me talk about the Q Acoustic concepts for literally 45 minutes with a whole bunch of sound clips.
So he was jumping down your throat about a video you already did?
Well, that's the funny thing about it is it's a video that I had already done that I linked in the review, and that's usually how I do it. So my process is I get a speaker in, I'll do sound clips with commentary to kind of start up the review process, and then when I do the official review, I tell you everything that I experienced through the long haul. And so I always make sure that I link in the description that other video to reference. Like, you can...
Go ahead, open up New Record Day.
Yeah.
And go look. It'll probably be pretty close together because you probably...
It's right there.
Put them up on YouTube at a similar time.
Yeah, it's right there. Right there in front of you, buddy.
At least he didn't attack you personally.
No, yeah. I gotta say, I appreciate the fact that he really was after you, man. He's an angry
care
elf.
For me at all.
He does not like you. He does not like you.
That was probably the worst one I've gotten thus far. It was so articulate the way he put his thoughts together about it too. He had a few different points, very well communicated.
Yeah.
And he just let me have it.
Yeah. Yeah. He did. Cool. Well, that is what's new.
Cool.
In,
That's right.
audio
thinking
world
about it all.
and mean
Couldn't
comments.
sleep.
Yeah. What do you do,
The funny
man?
thing is, though, that video has gotten a ton of reviews, and almost all the comments have been overwhelmingly positive. Occasionally, a few people say, "Oh man, you should get some sleep, bro. You look tired," and I was, because it was like 1 a.m.
Because it was the third time having to do it. Yeah.
Well, and here's a funny thing. Maybe not put a microphone right next to two amplifiers that are running, and then touch them all over the amplifiers and get an enormous amount of feedback.
Randy, do you mind if I vouch for you, my friend? Do you mind if I jump in here and explain what happened?
Go for it.
All right. So Randy sends me a video, complete video, edited, done, on YouTube, ready to go. And he's like, Ron, I want to see what you think. And he said, something funny happened when I touched the amplifiers. There was a bit of feedback, and I start watching this video, and immediately as the video starts, I hear this. And I'm like, oh, okay, all right, that's funny. And sure enough, as Randy goes on to do this complete review with all great thoughts and everything that I would expect from,
and flailing hands.
It was with the sponsorships. It was done. And as you would touch the different amplifiers, it would go from
go. And then, like, as soon as I pulled my finger off, it'd be go back to And I was like, this is kind of funny. And then I was like, okay, this isn't funny anymore.
You know, I had to make a decision when I was watching that. I said, you know, an okay friend would say, good job, man. A great friend would say, hey, bro, you got to redo it.
Yeah, it's a little bit distracting.
You got to redo it. I don't want you to. I don't want you to have to do it, but what will happen, trust me, is everyone is going to be talking about the feedback in the video and not the video itself.
Yeah. So I did redo it.
Yeah.
Got some awesome D-roll.
I love the D-roll.
We had the moving camera and everything.
Yeah.
And then I rendered it, uploaded it, and then started watching, and my face was completely out of focus because I had changed the settings on the camera for my fantastic D-roll.
Oh, man.
And then I was just like, but here's the thing, at least like 75% of it was okay because it was like the back of the amps and stuff like that.
Sure.
And so I'm like, okay. We're going to have to reshoot the intro.
Here we go again.
And so I had to do that, and then I had to render it, and then I had to upload it. And then people still hate me.
Yeah. It's welcome to the life of a reviewer, but hey, we can't complain.
No, people are watching that video. They really like it.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Except for that one gentleman.
No. Yeah. Cool, man. Well, let's transition back into amplifiers.
Let's do it.
So
we got a couple of minutes left.
Yeah. What do we want to tackle next? What do we want to dive into?
All right. So we talked about A, B, D. Let's talk about pre-amps and integrated amps.
Okay.
And then, maybe.
Sure.
Does that sound okay?
That sounds great. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Preamp, no amplifier in it. You'd have to hook it up to a power amp. Power amp, no volume control. The volume's controlled in the preamp. Okay? That's an integrated amp. And then you have an integrated amp that sometimes have preamps outs. So you can have your amp, drive some speakers, and then be like, you know what? I want another amp on there. And then you can add another amp. And then your integrated amp now becomes your preamp.
That's it.
Dead silence on the other end.
Show's over. I mean, that's it. You know, I was thinking about something, and I don't know how you feel, but I don't think I could buy my own money. I could not purchase an integrated amplifier that does not have pre-outs. I don't think I would do it.
So this is the point. Okay, so early on, I interviewed the Denon PMA 600NE. He didn't say anything back to me. It was all one-sided. No. So I reviewed the Denon PMA 600NE, and it's a nice integrated. It's $400. Great. It's all great functionality. Sounds pretty good, nice and thick. It's got a phono preamp and everything, right? And then I got the Emotiva TA100, which for all intents and purposes has very similar functionality. And the Denon was better, had better tone controls, had a better remote. I can't say it sounded better, but it came down to one thing and one thing only. The Emotiva had preamp outs. The Denon did not. And so there is an upgrade path with the Emotiva where there is not one with the Denon, and that's fine. The Denon may be everything you need, and it quite possibly could be everything you need. But I wanted to have the option to be able to add a power amp later if I wanted to.
Yeah. Well, I concur. And just to piggyback kind of where this conversation is going, it's important to understand that a preamp is more of a utility device. Now, it can have its own sonic footprint, absolutely, but think of it as just, it is the utility in that it is something to plug things into, your sources. Yeah. Right?
It's managing all that. It's managing your sources. It's a traffic cop.
It is. Now, and so when we see a preamp and power amp in one, which is an integrated amplifier that does have pre-outs, it's kind of a way to intercept the utility portion of that amplifier, but it allows you to engage in other flavors of amplification, and that could range from all of the amplifiers that we just mentioned: Class A, Class AB, Class D, and yes, even tube amplification. And so, as Randy just declared, the upgrade path now becomes very interesting and very appealing because now you get to explore things, and that's fun.
Yeah, and you don't have to do it right away. That's the beauty of an Iota VX PA3. No, it's the SA3. I'm still messing it up.
Yeah, it's okay.
The Emotiva TA100 and any other integrated that's got pre-outs. You save up your money, you buy it, you hook speakers up to it, and you have a blast. You have a ball. 2 years down the line, you're like, well, let's step it up a bit. I want to get this, or I've heard great things about this power amp, and then you can add it.
Yeah.
And so out of the box, you're enjoying music. Later on, you don't have to go out and start researching everything and trying to figure out what your next integrated is. You can just go buy your power amp. And there are advantages to that, because now you're starting to separate out the power supply from the preamp and your power amp, which generally is going to reduce distortion. So now you're getting maybe a better sonic characteristic, maybe better enjoyment, because now you're starting to kind of, okay, I just want you boosting the music. You're handling the inputs and the outputs and stuff. And I think most would argue that is probably the truth.
Yes.
Did I get it right?
Dude, you're killing it. It's great. You need to lead the charge every podcast episode. You're doing fantastic.
Appreciate it. I need a lot of validation from you.
No, you're doing fantastic. Later, I'll text you and be like, everything you said was wrong, but this sucker's going.
We're still throwing it up. Yeah,
we're throwing it up. No, you did great. Let me ask you, bro. So, in the event where we're discussing a preamp and we're going to declare that some preamps might have a sonic footprint, or it might actually change the flavor of what you hear, can you think of examples as to why and when that might be in your experience?
For a preamp, how it can color the sound?
Yeah.
I think there are some hybrid amps that have like a tube preamp section. And then they will have a solid state output section. So I believe Shit has something similar to that.
Yeah, Skahit. Yep.
Yep. So, yes, you can start to mix and match. And I think, personally, it's a pretty exciting time when you're starting to utilize different topologies in the same box and have more freedom. And oftentimes in those products, you can defeat one of those, options.
Yes.
So if you want full solid state, if you want this, if you want that. So the options start to get really interesting, and you can start tailoring a system to what you particularly like, or you can start to learn what you like by utilizing these products. So down the road, you can know, I really want a tube amp, or I really want this or that. So the opportunities are, I think, greater now than they ever have been.
Beautiful. Another thing that I want to discuss, and you nailed it. That's perfect. I'm not even going to add to it. Another thing that we need to recognize is that, as we discussed in last week's episode about sources have a gain structure. So they're going to supply a certain amount of gain to the preamp. And
2 volts generally, unless it's balanced.
Bingo. Now, what happens with that is then typically amplified by the preamp, meaning the preamp also has a gain structure built into the preamp. And yes, guess what? Now a power amp also has a gain structure. It is important to note that some preamps do not have a gain structure, and they can't really be, by definition, called a preamp. They would be called a passive preamp, which is kind of a misnomer. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But,
no, I got it, because I have one. It's basically a volume control pot.
Yep. And so what that is doing, which is interesting, is it's taking the gain that has been supplied by the source through the output of the source, and it's saying, yeah, you've already given me enough, and we know that where it's going has enough, so now you just turn it up. And that, again, can lead to some very interesting things in hi-fi.
Mm-hmm.
So, the Freya Plus from Skahit Audio, our friends from Norway, that design is rather clever because that has 3 modes of hi-fi. With a press of a button, you can go from passive to a solid-state JFET buffer to then tubes with gain. And that's...
What are you calling that company?
It's Skahit Audio from Norway. Skahit. They make the
Freya.
The Freya Plus. Uh-huh.
I thought it was Shit Audio from California.
I'm pretty sure you're wrong.
Are you messing with me right now?
So it's funny because now this is actually live and happening. So I trolled everybody when I did my first video with Shit Audio. I actually was going along. You'll have to see the video. I was trolling everybody, thinking that I thought it was Skahit Audio from Norway, and you should have seen.
You got lit up in the comments.
Oh, dude, they were coming unglued. And I waited until like 7 minutes into the video. I was like, obviously, it's Shit Audio. But it's fun. It's fun.
Man, you had me. I'm like, I don't know if that's right, Ron. I'm going to let you keep talking, but Skahit.
Ron, what's wrong with you? Are you drunk today?
I knew the Freya was a shit product. I'm like, wait a minute.
No.
That can't.
It's a new Record Day joke. Every now and then I still get a comment that pops up. It's like, no, man, Jason said it's Shit Audio. It's because his wife was in the garage one day and blah. I'm like, I know. Can you now watch the videos? It's
Just
great.
watch the whole thing. It's a joke.
7 minutes in, the gig is up. Anyways, getting back on topic. The preamp can indeed have an impact on what you end up with, and one of the good reasons as to why that would be is, like Randy just expressed, is what if it has a tube? That is certainly going to change the flavor of what you hear, and that just throwing my hat in the ring, that is my favorite place to put a tube, is in the preamp. It has been my experience that if you want to place a tube somewhere, I think that's a great place to do it.
Sounds good to me, Ron.
Yeah.
I think you know what you're talking about. I got a tube amp. I'm really excited about it.
Wait, what? Did you get the...
Yeah.
You got the mono price in?
Yeah, they delivered and everything. Sitting right outside. Ooh. I can't wait to open it up and then listen to it.
Yeah. Okay. So where are we at?
$300.
$300?
Right. Yeah, $300. It's got Bluetooth. It's actually a power amp, and it has preamp outs. So guess what?
Oh, man.
Hook up the A300 from Emotiva. Hook up the PA3 from Iota. All sorts of stuff. Now you can do it.
While we're on the topic of tubes, we might as well mention advantages and disadvantages to tubes. The advantages is many tube amplifiers do some interesting things in terms of, we're going to get into audiophile territory, a holographic soundstage, if you will. Holographic.
It sounds fun.
Yeah, and it is fun, and it can be fun. And
like Blade Runner.
Disadvantages is tubes go bad. And sometimes right out of the box, tubes are bad, meaning you might hear a weird noise and you got to replace a tube, and that's kind of a pain in the butt. So that would be a disadvantage to tube amplifiers.
But isn't that disadvantage kind of an advantage, because that's kind of the fun part of it, right?
It can be, yeah. It can be, for sure, unless you are Ron Bernay circa 1997 and you replaced the tube and you bent one of the pins and then you broke the tube socket and then you had to pay an additional $100 and something to get the tube amplifier fixed, and then weeks later finally know what that amp actually sounds like.
Yeah, learning life lesson now.
Life lessons.
Don't put it in sideways or at a 45-degree angle, Ron.
Not a good idea. So, yes, but to your point, bro, there are many, many different tubes out there, and we get into the topic of tube rolling, and that means taking one...
I think that's such a dumb way to describe it.
Tube rolling. You roll the tube. You roll it.
No, you don't. You pull one out and you put the other one in. You should just be like...
Tube pulling.
Tube changing, or... Hey, I'm going to switch out my tubes. Tube rolling. That's another thing. CD transport and tube rolling. I had no idea what was going on for a while. And I'm like, they just mean I'm going to change the tubes.
That's what they mean.
To something else.
That's what they mean.
Or earpad rolling.
I think DMX came up with the term. I think that's where it started.
Don't blame poor DMX.
X is going to give it to you. Yeah, I think it was DMX.
We talk about DMX in my next Between Two Speakers.
Oh, awesome. I can't wait. Another thing that tubes bring to the table when we're talking about tube amplification, whether it's preamp or power amp, is changing the different tube types. And what I mean by that is, more often with power amps, is if it accepts by default a certain tube type, you can sometimes change that for a completely different type of tube. You got to check with the manufacturer to make sure what you can all throw in there. You might have to change the bias, but that can change the flavor of, what you hear, which is interesting.
And I think that's what's so cool about tube amps in general.
Yeah.
Is you've got a foundation. And what you do with it is completely up to you. And that's a great thing. Like, if you buy an AB or whatever, that's it. You got what you got.
Yeah.
With a tube amp, you can start rolling your tubes. And then you can be like what Ron just said. Hey, you know what? Let's get on some forums or call Ron over at New Record Day and figure out how I can do something different. And there's just so many options. Freedom. And that is fun for the people that are so inclined to do something like that.
Yes. Correct.
Yeah. It's like Legos. But if you step on it, you could cut yourself.
Yes, you could. At 3 o'clock in the morning as you're going in for, some warm milk.
Just in case your tube amp was in the middle of the living room.
Yeah. Dad life. Yeah. All right. Disadvantages to tube amplifiers. Are there disadvantages? We've already mentioned one, but it could also be an advantage. I would say you got to be careful with matching, because we do enter the territory of, is a tube amplifier high current? Not necessarily. Can it drive the most demanding loads out there? Not all the time. And so if you're the type of audiophile that says, I'm going to get some Maggies and I'm going to get some tube amplifiers, I'm going to say, slow your roll, Captain America. You might want to just...
Slow your roll.
Slow your roll.
No pun intended.
Slow your roll.
Leave the tubes alone.
Slow your roll.
Slow your tube roll.
And I'm not saying... Look, there's probably going to be some audiophiles yelling at me, like, you can do tubes with Maggies. And you know what I'm going to say? Not in my experience. Because here's the thing, is I've tried both, and then when you start giving high current to Maggies, you know what they say to you? They say, thank you, good sir.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for doing that. And they wake up, and it's amazing.
I don't know Maggie personally.
Yeah, you should. I want you
I would
to
love
know
to get some
Maggie.
LRSs. LRS. I want some.
I think you would have a blast. You know, never mind. I was going to say they made a desktop system, but then I realized it's like $2,500. So that's not going to fit in the category of cheap audio, man.
They shrunk it down and charged you way more.
You should start up another YouTube channel called Rich Audio Man and just go bananas. Do the highfalutin stuff.
Yeah, well, I would have no experience with that and no frame of reference.
You know what? You don't need it. You know what I do is I hold two speakers in my arms. I close one eye, and then I just point at one. I'm like, that's the winner.
That was from our blooper outtake, Ron. I'll pick them up. I see which one's heavier, close an eye, and then I pick
This
one.
is the winner. This is the best one.
That was a fun joke. I like that one.
It was a great joke. All right, man. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just take the show for a couple of minutes here and just let you all know that this podcast is available on a lot of different platforms out there. Obviously, this is going to be on my channel as well as Randy's. We're going to try to get these out every single Wednesday as long as the editing is done, and we thank you for watching it. But if you do take a look in the description down below, there's going to be some places in which you can listen to this podcast offline. You can on the go.
Apple.
Yeah.
Spotify. Are we on Spotify?
We're on every major podcasting platform. We're on Spotify. We're on
Hank's Podcasting Barn.
Hank finally got on board with us. He's like, okay, all right, we'll do one episode. We'll do half of the episode for a week.
But you have to talk about barnyard animals every episode.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. So, I just want to let you guys know. And so, in the event where you want to check us out, that's a great place to do it.
So, when we're talking about all these amplifiers, I mean, I know I have my opinion on what's good and what I think is a good value, but I'll just name off the ones I think are good. Okay? So, we have the Emotiva TA100 integrated preamp outs. You can get the A300, but also Emotiva has a kind of a upper tier line as well above that with preamps and everything else. Iota VX, SA3, PA3 I think are a great option, but also some of the, I would say, mid-tier to high-tier AV receivers also have preamp outs. And if you can only buy one product and you're going to be using it for both home theater and music, I think those are a good product to look at. And I know Marantz and Denon both have options for a preamp out, and they're pretty affordable. You know, I'm saying the $500 range and up, you can probably find a preamp out. So if that's something you're considering, make sure you take a look at the back of your AV receiver and it has preamp outs. And then I've heard some really good Class Ds lately. The SVS, the sound bass, SMSL AD18, I think is fantastic. And those are, the SMSL is $140 with a remote. It's really awesome, and that's Class D. Do you have any favorite ones that you want to talk about that aren't $17,000?
Yes, I do. I think my favorite amplifier that I have spent a lot of time with over the years is the original Vinny Rossi Leo. It was not $17,000. It was like $10,000 and some change. So I'm well under that ridiculous number. And
pretty reasonable. 10 grand.
Pretty reasonable. It has been kind of a staple here at New Record Day, and a lot of the guys that have followed me know that, and it's been one of my favorites. Now, that is not to say that there haven't been some real sleepers in terms of just affordable gear that I've absolutely fallen in love with that won't break the bank and won't be $10,000. One that stood the test of time in terms of a power amplifier was the Hypex NC400 monoblocks. And I did a video for Encore where I show how to put those together, and it's on their site still, and you can check it out. But those are fantastic. They're incredible. They're very transparent, and they just kind of get out of the way. Might not be the most exciting power amp by themselves. So again, it's heavily dependent on what is your preamp able to do to kind of make them do some interesting things. And in that example, get a tube on those and see what happens. And it's pretty awesome. I'm also a big fan of the Shit Audio Stack that I reviewed. And so this would be the Freya Plus, and that's under $1,000. We have the Aegers, it's a stereo amplifier that can be also bridged to do mono, so there's an upgrade path for you.
Sure it's not a Aegir?
Aegir? Aegir? Maybe that's it.
Aegir.
This whole time I've been wrong. I've been wrong
like 4 times. I could be wrong. I don't know.
Let's just do Aegir. Right. Let's do Aegir from Norway. And
you're messing with me again, man.
I know.
The Scandinavian company.
Aegir is an interesting amplifier. Speaking of topology, it's continuity class A, and I think that Skihi Audio just made that up. I don't think it's really a thing. It is. I'm joking, but I don't understand it. I'm not going to pretend to understand it. But if you go to their website and read about it, they kind of break it down, and it's pretty interesting stuff. Beautiful amplifiers, fantastic. So that combo is killer. One of my favorites of all time, and it's certainly not $10,000.
I want to listen to those.
Oh, dude,
badly.
So good. It's mind-numbing the mileage that you can get out of that rig. It is mind-numbing the mileage that you can get. For the highfalutin stuff, for the really high-end tube amplification, I recently reviewed the Manly Labs 300Bs. Those are $10,000 for the monoblocks. But let's all back up for a minute and remember, Manly is literally like doing everything in-house. It is made in the USA, and much of the stuff is being made literally in-house. The transformers are custom wound by them, and so if they want to charge $10,000 for their monoblocks, then so be it. And they are beautiful sounding. It's really something special. So there's those. I also have some interesting pieces, Randy, that you can't necessarily buy. So I'm not sure if I want to talk about them too much, but my friend Danny from GR Research had a friend named Gary Dodd who passed away, and Dodd was a creative mind that built some preamps and power amps and DACs and phonos that literally are all powered by a 12-volt battery. And so I've been collecting some of those pieces over the years, and they're astonishingly good. They're and some of it is...
Take them in the car with you.
You take them in the car. That's what they're made for, Randy, is you can hook them up to your kickers in the back, and off you go, racing down the road, chasing DMX, just for fun, just for giggles,
Taking them out in the country, kicking them out of the car in the middle of the night.
So
run, boy, run!
Run, boy. But seriously, like, I've picked these pieces up used for pennies to the dollar, dude. We're talking like if you're patient, you can get it a preamp for $600 or $700 or $800. You just got to be patient and wait. You can get some good deals.
I got the Anthem Integrated 225, which is a monster, like 300 watts and 4 ohms.
Wow.
And that in its day was like a $2,000 or maybe even more integrated amp. Yeah, they still make the 225. Anthem makes the power amp, but they don't make the integrated anymore.
Yeah.
So when things aren't detailed enough, I will hook them up to that and see if it clears that up.
There we go. So I think that's the show, man. I mean,
yeah, we better wrap this up before I get in trouble.
Yeah. I think we did it, man. Well,
very good.
Take us home. Take us home, buddy.
Well, listen, everybody. Thanks for joining us at the Ron and Randy Audio Hour. If you've stuck with us this far, we really appreciate it. Every Wednesday, we're going to do this. Ron's got some cool stuff coming out. I've got some cool stuff coming out. Go watch some YouTubery and have a good time. And don't binge watch. Binge listen and fill your soul with happiness.
See you guys in the next show. Bye.